Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. I am Jeremy.
I am Andy.
And we both proudly grew up largely in the 90s in a world that did not have a robot uprising, unlike our movie that we're talking about today, The Electric State.
It did not.
The Electric State is a new movie on Netflix from the directing combo of the Russo brothers and the writers of basically all of their Marvel stuff and the Netflix stuff they've done, The Gray Man and this.
Yep. These guys really like working with each other.
They do.
Yeah.
And, to mostly good results. Mm-hmm. More on that later.
Yeah.
So this movie was a little trickier to summarize, but I'm going to try to summarize it for us.
I can't wait to hear your summary for this movie.
But here we go. In an alternate version of the 1990s where there was a robot uprising, humans win the battle by submitting their minds to drone technology, which ends up running their lives once the war is over. Now, Michelle, played by Millie Bobby Brown, the rebel orphan girl who lives for the real world and not the virtual drone world, encounters a robot who only communicates through its image's old cartoon dialogue, but it turns out to be the mind of her genius brother who was previously believed to be deceased. Together, they recruit the help of discount Peter Quill, Keats, played by Chris Pratt, and his robot sidekick Herman, who proves that Anthony Mackie does not have that distinctive a voice, on an adventure into the exclusion zone where where the remaining robots live, leading to more convoluted plotting that ultimately doesn't matter because this movie is all about spectacle, baby. That's what I got.
Once again, you do a way better job than I ever could at summarizing these movies.
Yeah. All right, Andy, the question, was The Electric State good?
The answer, no. It is not. And that really, really pains me because I really like the Russo brothers. And I feel like it's really popular after Avengers Endgame to just really dump all over the Russo brothers. And it's like, guys, I'm trying to help you out here. I'm trying to defend you, but you got to make some good movies.
Yeah.
I mean, The Gray Man, it was like, this isn't very good. Honestly, they did that movie called, was it Cherry with Tom Holland?
Yeah, I didn't watch that one.
I didn't see it, so I can't comment. But it was just like, The Gray Man came out and I was like, well, that wasn't very good, but it's really hard to follow up Avengers Endgame. I'm glad we got that out of the way. And this came out, and it's like, okay, I like the Russo brothers. I like Chris Pratt. He's another one I feel like it's kind of popular to dump on him.
Yeah.
I like Millie Bobby Brown. I like Stranger Things. She did Damsel last year, which was very harmless. Mm-hmm. I didn't think she was bad in it at all. But it's just like, holy cow, this is a mess.
I thought it was fascinating because what I tend to do with my notes is I just go back to the notes I had the previous week and then just kind of rework it. I'd use the structuring and rework it for the movie I have. But I actually didn't have notes from last week. With Novocaine, I had the notes from Mickey 17 on there, and I went to write my notes.
And it's a lot of the same things?
I don't have to change very much because my notes read, no, I don't think this is a good movie. It's incredibly well made, great craftsmanship all around, but no heart, tonally all over the place.
It is.
And I'm like, that's this movie. I added too silly to be good action and not funny enough to be a comedy.
Yeah.
It just kind of exists in this weird plane where I don't really know what this movie was or who it was for.
I don't either. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Maybe it's ultimately just like because this is from a book, right?
Yeah, a book or
a story
novel
or I don't know,
there's
whatever.
some source material it's from.
Maybe just some things just are not meant to be adapted into a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say this. There's parts of this movie where I'm watching and I go, I get why they wanted to make this and why they thought this would work.
Yeah.
Because there are elements of it I'm like that are neat, that are cool. Like it really is well made, as I said.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you talked about it. There's a lot of things about this movie that are popular to dump on. The Russo brothers post Avengers, or even just for being the Avengers guys, because people like to dump on Marvel's not real cinema. It gets dumped on for being Netflix, for its gigantic budget.
Dude.
For Chris Pratt. There's just all these sorts of things where I'm going like, it was already being dumped on before I could see it. Like it's critics were dumping on it before I saw it. And I was like, I want to give it a fair chance and not go on with that mentality. And as I'm watching going like, it's not that bad. It's just not good.
Yeah.
Like it's...
Oh, dude. I mean, we talk about them on here a lot, the rewatchable guys. And like Sean Fennessy was like, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Man.
Like he hated this movie, and I'm like, man, I get where he's coming from to an extent, but it's just like, I don't know. I've seen a lot worse movies. It's also an interesting conversation to have, like, why we like as like the movie community. You see, what is it, like a $330 million budget for this movie?
I think 320 is what I said, but yeah,
like you see that, and that kind of just makes you want to turn on the movie for some reason.
yeah.
Like it's just hard not to get annoyed by that, and I don't know why that is, but it's like, oh my gosh. That's an enormous budget. I mean, it's like we did Novocaine last week, $18 million budget. And these two movies, those movies have nothing in common, but it's like, that's just an unbelievably high number for a budget.
It is. And it's especially bizarre because it being a Netflix movie, there's no noble way to know if it's worth it.
Right.
You know, like a normal movie, you go, well, what's its box office return?
Yeah. And that's very clear. Like,
yeah. And Netflix could, I guess they could give us streaming numbers, but even that, we don't know exactly how that translates to so
money.
Was it worth the money that you spent?
I mean, you're almost just inclined to think it can't be.
Right. I mean,
how do you justify that?
You're sitting there going like $320 million. How many Netflix subscriptions is that for how long?
Gosh, it's just an insanely high number.
It is an insanely high number. We said the critics were tearing this movie apart. It's got a 15% critics rating on Rotten Tomato.
Yeah.
Fascinating, though, 71% on audiences.
Yeah.
The same audience score as Black Bag.
I don't know, man.
Wild to me.
It's wild.
But once again, I think the people who watch Electric State are probably people who would expect to like it.
Yeah.
For one thing, Millie Bobby Brown has got a massive fan base.
She's so popular right
She's
now.
one of those people, like, again, the new movie world that we live in that I don't understand and is frustrating to hear about, where producers say things like, we need our star to have so many Instagram followers. Like, they're talking about Millie Bobby Brown because she's got millions of Instagram followers. Like, when she does something, people are going to watch. She's got all these young Stranger Things fans that are now like, she's my girl and I follow her where she goes. Yeah. So, like, I imagine most of the teens watching this for her are like, they're going to vote. They like it. But man, when you are someone like us who's watched a ton of movies, I think maybe the most kind of damning thing for this movie is, even though it's supposed to be an original story, there's hardly anything in this that feels original.
Yeah. You nailed it right there. It all just feels like stuff we've seen in, like, it's got a lot of like Ready Player One vibes. And even the brother showing up as that character who can only speak in the cartoon voice, you're like, oh, so Bumblebee from Transformers. It's all stuff we've seen before.
And I made the joke in my summary where Chris Pratt feels like he's just doing Star-Lord again. Just a discount version of it.
And again, I'm saying this as someone who likes Chris Pratt.
Oh, I do too. And like, he's
not
funny
bad
and charming at moments in this movie, but it's just like, but why is he doing the same character we've seen before?
I know. And it's like you sit here and you go like, okay, the Russos, Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown. And it's like, all these things like should make, Anthony Mackie doing a voice.
I mean, the cast is unreal.
It's really
both real
good.
people and voice actors.
Yeah, it's really, really good. They grabbed someone else from the Avengers world as a voice actor, didn't they? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah,
I think someone else or maybe someone else they've just worked with before. But then, it's just like, I don't know, just I guess, like, we talk about a lot, like we use like the food analogies. Like, just because all the ingredients are good, I guess it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a good end result. I don't know.
What it is it's really expensive pizza.
Yeah.
And
when you're like,
pizza's one of those foods where you go like, okay, cool, but like,
I could have just gotten
what's just as good? Yeah, is cheap pizza. Pizza's not a food that's meant to be made gourmet.
Yeah. That maybe that's just what it is. Like I said, where it ultimately just goes back to like, did this movie need to be made?
Yeah. And the $320 million is obviously like largely the visual effects.
Oh yeah.
I read in the trivia that none of the robots or things were like practical. None of them were animatronics. They were all CGI. And the Russos made the case that like it was actually going to be more expensive to try to do practical stuff. And I'm like, I'll take your word for it. But the bottom line is they do create a world that is like there's a lot going on visually.
There is.
And so like I get why it costs so much in a way, but I look at it and go like, but what a weird visual we have where we've got these action battles where we've got a Mr. Peanut and like they're cartoonish robots, and you're exactly right. Ready Player One is the exact vibes that it gives, where it feels like a video game, but like a very childlike video game.
Yeah. And you know what I kept thinking when I was watching this? I was thinking about stuff I've said on this podcast before, where it's like, man, I just really long for the days where we couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
I really, and I don't want to be that guy that's like, well, I'm 44 years old, so I'm stuck. What I like is what I grew up on, the Terminator and stuff. But it's like, and not that these movies have anything in common, but it's like I was actually just watching the Terminator this week because I just like to watch the Terminator. And it's like, it meant so much more when you had to work so hard to achieve what you wanted to get. And even if you could, I've said this before in here, even if you could see the cracks, it's so much better than when we could just do literally anything.
I loved hearing James Cameron was on the Big Picture podcast not long ago. I'm pretty sure it was on that I heard him tell this story about when they were doing the Terminator. They were literally like driving around downtown where they were filming, just trying to like spot locations, go, okay, let's film here. Mm-hmm. And he'd like find a place and be like, okay, let's do it here. And his lighting director was just like constantly exasperated. He's like, yeah, okay, how do you expect me to light this location where we're on a shoestring budget and we're basically just need to find places that aren't hard to light because we're almost just using the natural setup.
Yeah.
And like, you think about the Terminator and nothing about it feels that cheap, but hearing that that's the way that they were working.
Yeah.
And we've said all the time, like that low budget, the necessity of creativity breeds better creativity. It does. And just knowing like there's no feel of that in this movie, that they had to do any sort of innovation because it was like everything's in front of a green screen and we'll just throw up whatever we
literally
need.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I thought about this a lot too with like other, action movies, even like other Russo brother movies, like their MCU stuff. To me, as a movie watcher, a lifelong movie watcher, no matter how far out the movie is, it's so helpful to me, and I think a lot of people would probably feel this way, to have, even like, go back to the Terminator. So like the Terminator is obviously this far out sci-fi movie, but it still feels like it's taking place in a real world and there's some kind of real stakes involved. And I think when you get to something like this, where it's just literally in fantasy land and just, you can do anything, like you said, it's like Mr. Peanut, and it's like any semblance of realism is just out the window. And that just makes it really hard to invest into the movie. And that's where you get what you're saying, where you're like, you just go like, okay, like, but this movie has no heart. I have no connection to anything or anybody. Yeah. And you get that even in something like the Terminator, where it's just like, but this feels like it is taking place in a real world, and I do care a little bit about what's happening. Or, more recently, like the other Russo brothers movies, where that was in the confines of the MCU, but it was characters that you had a history with. Mm-hmm. So even if there's this enormous battle going on with Thanos and all this stuff, like, I still care what the result is. And you just lose that so much in this movie.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Russo brothers, because
I'd love to.
They got their career started working in comedy television.
It's so wild.
Worked on some things that I really like and adore. They did episodes of Arrested Development in the early 2000s. They did the movie You, Me, and Dupree.
That's wild.
So wild to think about.
It is so wild.
Went back to TV shows, did some episodes of a show called Happy Endings, which not a lot of people have seen, but I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. Community, which is one of my favorites, and that's maybe what they're most well known for in their TV days. Mm-hmm. And then it's really random that they break through with Captain America: Winter Soldier. It's there's almost no explanation for why they jumped from this stuff to that. Yeah. And yet they did, and it works well that,
like, I know you're not the biggest Winter Soldier guy, but I don't think anyone would watch that and be like, what a terribly directed movie.
But it works so well that they go, we're going to give you Civil War, and then that works so well that they go, we're going to give you Infinity War and Endgame, and all of those are considered successes. And then afterwards, it's The Gray Man, and it's this movie. And it made me think, are the Russo brothers the ultimate, like, kind of guns for hire to blend in without their own style?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you think about it, that's what TV directors kind of have to do. Like, you can't come in and direct an episode of TV that's different from the tone that you've already set.
It still has to be the
you've
show.
got to fit this, but but do it really well.
Yeah.
And that's what they did in these episodes of Rest Development and Community, and having these like good episodes, but they blend well. And then coming into the Marvel universe, that's already been kind of established, and they're like, we get the tone, and we can carry that on. And maybe the problem is when they're getting to these big original projects, they're not coming in with a vision or a tone. There isn't one already set. And so what do we get? We get stuff that feels like stuff we've already seen, because they might just be the best at imitation.
Yeah. I'll buy into that, because I can't figure it out. I can't figure out why these guys, because it's like, whatever you think of them or whatever you think of the MCU, they had, to me, one of the hardest tasks. I don't really think it's an exaggeration to say, like, in movie history, where it's like you're building to this giant MCU crescendo of Infinity War and Endgame, and that was planned. And for them to get the reins to that and be like, hey guys, like, you're getting ready to make two of the, what will probably be, and then what ended up being, two of the biggest, most anticipated movies ever. And, you know, in my opinion, they couldn't have done any better. I think Infinity War and Endgame are just an unbelievable achievement. Like I said, even if you're not an MCU guy, you know, for them to like combine all these characters and to you know, Infinity War is one of the all-time biggest like shock endings, and, you know, basically a cliffhanger, and then you got the year wait into Endgame, and like they got handed a major task, and they nailed it. And then it was like, after Endgame, it was like they just cannot figure out what their place is. And now they're going back to the MCU, you know, with, you know, another big task of like, can we still do this? And like, are the Avengers still? So I don't know. It's mind boggling. And like, you watch The Gray Man, and it's just such a pile of nothing, but it's Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. And there's like, I don't want to totally discredit them. There's some cool things. There's some cool action sequences. It just doesn't add up to anything.
It doesn't add up to anything. So, like, you know, it's like, I'm not ready to be like, man, the Russo brothers, what? Because, I mean, you read stuff online, and it's brutal. Where it's like, what a bunch of talentless hacks, you know? And it's like, I don't want to say that.
Yeah. No, I mean, we'll use the analogy of like sports coaches. I think you've got certain coaches that are tailor-made to coach teams that are loaded and like championship contenders. So as a coach, your job really is like, do I just manage this team, manage the talent, sort of make sure nothing goes wrong?
Right.
And they're the ideal coach for that scenario. In the NBA, this is like a Doc Rivers situation. Doc Rivers is known for being great at handling talent. And then you got your coaches who are like, hey, when we don't have a lot of talent, they're really good at coming up with these special game plans and tactics and stuff and tinkering where we're going to overachieve. And I think like the Russos are not that. They're not take the developing team, and they're give them the talent and say, I need you to just manage this and make sure things go smoothly. Yeah. And that's what they are. They're that type of director, you know? Yeah. So I think, you know, I'm definitely not out on like, these guys can't do it. I don't think they're talentless hacks. I just think maybe, like I said, as long as if the ship's already moving and you're like, we need you to just control it, they're perfectly capable hands. I mean, they're not going to mess things up. Yeah. But maybe you just don't want them having to pick the direction of the ship.
I guess so. It's a real wild career, because I mean, you know, I talk on here all the time about like runs being underrated. And it's like their 4-movie run was Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. That's insane. Even if you don't like those movies, that is 4 literal, like, I don't think Winter Soldier quite hit $1 billion, but Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, these are $1 billion plus movies grossing. Boom, boom, boom. And I think Winter Soldier was like an $800 million grosser and got, you know, really good reviews and da-da-da. And it's like, that's an insane 4-movie run.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of been, you know, it's unfortunate that they haven't been able to follow that, but.
Yeah. Getting back to the electric state.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about stuff, but not the electric state.
It was totally okay. There's not like there's tons to talk about.
There's not a lot
there.
to break down.
I did just want to throw out. They got Stanley Tucci to play the villain.
Yeah,
I love Stanley Tucci.
How do you not love Stanley Tucci?
But there's, like I said, an amazing cast. There's a lot of like, what a waste of this guy in this movie. And Stanley Tucci just kind of doing the generic, like, it's such a familiar story beat. Oh, this guy came in with the solution that helped us win, and now we all champion him. But oh, wait, secretly he's the bad
got a
guy.
hidden agenda.
Yeah. It's just so unoriginal, and I don't know. There was no. He didn't even get to be like the chew the scenery, over the top bad guy or anything. It was just so generic.
It was.
The other question that has to be asked about this movie is this some of the worst wig work ever in a movie?
Dude, like, that's, and I will say, like, I'm trying to defend them, but now I'm going to turn on them for a second. When you've got a $320 million budget, for crying out loud, the wigs or whatever need to look, you don't need to know that it's a wig. Like, or here's my thing. We know it's in the 90s. I don't need Chris Pratt to have a stupid hairdo.
Yeah.
It's distracting. It really is.
Yeah.
It is distracting. We all know what Chris Pratt looks like. We all know what the 90s were like. Either do it well or don't do it. And this is not done well. His hair is super distracting in this movie.
Very much so. So is Millie Bobby Brown's, to be honest.
It is.
And especially, you get the flashbacks where you're like, oh, that's Millie Bobby Brown. And then back to current day with her blonde wig. And you're like,
really distracting.
oh.
Yeah, so to me, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's already so much going on in this movie. I don't need a distractingly bad hairdo to look at also.
Yeah. And then even Ki-Hu Kwan shows up with his long wig. And it's like, it was probably actually the best of the wigs, but it's like, okay, clearly wearing this really long wig.
It's really, in a movie where there's already so much going on, I don't need weird haircuts on people who I'm not used to seeing with weird haircuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way too much.
Way too much.
Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else that you would want to add to the specific story. There's really not a lot.
There's not a lot.
This is not a movie I'm going to say people watch.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying you can
And I actually read an article where, like, the Netflix viewership for this movie is not what they wanted it to be, you know, for this big blockbuster. Yeah.
I'm sure.
And also, too, just what a weird world we live in, where a Russo brothers movie with Chris Pratt and all these people didn't come to the theater.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Maybe I just am getting old fashioned. I just can't wrap my mind around this stuff.
Well, and as I heard somebody say somewhere, I don't remember where, I'd credit them. How is it not financially necessary to put in theaters and try to, like,
get some of this
and
money
then you can
back.
like throw it on your streaming, you know, even just a couple weeks later if you want.
Yeah, but try and get some money out of the theater. And it's just weird. And then we talked about this week because I think we did an episode where we talked about a bunch of movies we had seen, and one of them was what was the name of the movie? The Millie Bobby Brown movie with the dragon?
Damsel.
And it was like, so I hate how, you know, here's possibly one of our next big stars. Stranger Things is a phenomenon. I think she's awesome in Stranger Things. I think she's so good. And it's like, back in the day, you know, this would be your test to find out, like, is she going to become one of our next stars based on how her movies were doing in the theater? And we're not getting that now. So it's like, I don't know if Millie Bobby Brown is going to be our next big star because we have no way to measure how her movies are performing other than, you know, it's like, even if you tell me it's number one on Netflix, okay, that means nothing to me.
Yeah. Something has to be.
Yeah. Like, so it's this. So it's like, I would have loved to have seen how Damsel would have performed in the theaters.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen how this would have performed in the theaters. Not so I could point, you know, like, ha, Millie Bobby Brown, you failed. But it gives you a way to measure, is this person going to be one of our big stars? Or, you know, does she just need to kind of stick to TV or TV shows on Netflix?
Yeah. And I think we talked about this. I'm pretty sure her career has been exclusively Netflix because she did Stranger Things. She must have like an exclusive contract with them. She did the Enola Holmes series.
And she's good in those. I watched those. One day I was like, I didn't have anything to do. And I watched it. I was like, this is pretty decent. Like, it's not really my cup of tea, but it's like, it's decent and she's good in them. And then like she is in a couple of those terrible Godzilla movies, I think. One
Oh,
or two
right.
of those.
Yeah, I think those did come to theater.
I don't fault her for how she is or isn't in those. She had nothing to work with. But
Yeah.
it's like, here's someone who is an interesting actress and is doing cool things in Stranger Things. I'd love to be able to know if that's translating into movies, and we just can't because of these stupid direct-to-Netflix movies.
Yeah. All right, we got our big recurring question before I get into one last thing we're going to do, which may take a few minutes. I didn't prepare you for this, but it's all right.
That's all right.
Electric State. Obviously, this would have improved it in some way, but where could we improve Electric State by putting in Uncle Chip?
This is the hardest I've ever struggled with the Uncle Chip question. I mean, do you just let Uncle Chip be the Chris Pratt character and just be this ridiculousness throughout this movie?
I think probably most appropriateness, like that would probably have been more fun, but maybe practically you just have him be like the customer Chris Pratt meets with early.
Yeah.
And he's not looking for a gun. He's looking for something weird.
Yeah.
He's got some strange things that he's looking for.
We'll go with yours.
Yeah.
A movie like this could really have benefited from Uncle Chip, though, because at least that would have been something interesting in this movie where there's unfortunately just not a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the thing I said I did not prepare you for, but
bring it on.
We got to talk about. So we talked about this movie's budget being one of the biggest talking points about it. $320 million budget, which is mind-blowing.
That's mind-blowing.
I learned from the trivia, this is the 16th film in history to have over a $300 million budget.
Okay.
Hard to believe that there'd been 15 others.
That is really hard to believe.
All right. What's not surprising is that all of the others are sequels. They're all from franchises.
Yeah.
This is the first original movie, or at least as far as like not being a sequel, to have that budget.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we're going to do, Andy. I'm going to list the movies for you, and I want to get just your quick, off the top of your head feedback. Let's see. You want to give them a ranking like letter grade A, B, C, D, or do you want to go like good, bad, or mediocre? Like what would you like to use as a what sounds like an easy way for you
I'm not a huge letter grade kind of guy, so I'll just give like a pretty good movie, or I'll give a very like couple sentence my thoughts.
All right.
I'm also excited just to hear this list.
It's something. All right. So the list is given in order it came out, but I'm going to actually mix it up. I'm going to kind of keep them collected. So the first two are Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which came out in 2007, and Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, which came out in 2011. What's your immediate thoughts? Do you have thoughts on those separately or together?
We'll just lump them in because I hate those movies so much. And I hate that those movies cost so much money. That is so stupid. That is such a waste of money and time. And the first Pirates of the Caribbean is fine. It's way too long, but it was fun. And then they just ruined it immediately. Those other sequels are a mess.
I'm with you. I liked the first one. Did not like the second and third one, which were like a part one and part two, basically, in each like 3 hours.
It's stupid.
I have not seen any of the ones that came out past that, which I don't know if both of these are ours at World's End.
Dude, I don't even know.
It all runs together, and I don't care.
I don't care. Could not care less. Don't like those movies.
So I cannot believe those are $300 million movies.
So sad.
All right. I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. All three of the newest Star Wars movies. So we got episode, what is it then? 7, 8, 9. The Force Awakens in 2015, The Last Jedi in 2017, and The Rise of Skywalker in 2019.
Yeah. We could do a whole podcast on what a mess those movies are. I actually really like The Force Awakens.
Okay.
I think that is a fun movie that I thought got this new trilogy off to a really promising start. And then it just became a mess. Like I'll never, for as long as I live, understand how they didn't have a cohesive storyline for those movies, where it just felt like they made Force Awakens, and then they got, is it Rain? How do you say his name? The dude that did Knives Out.
Rian Johnson.
He did The Last Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And they were just like, dude, do whatever you want. And then he did, through no fault of his own, I don't think. And then they brought J.J. Abrams in to be like, okay, clean up this mess now.
Yeah. You did whatever you want, but we actually didn't want you to do that.
Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, I don't know, man. I like Force Awakens. I will defend Force Awakens. I think Kylo Ren is cool. I think Daisy Ridley's really good as like the new kind of hero of this trilogy. And they just kind of did everyone, as my kids would say, they did him dirty. Like, all you had to do was have like a 3-movie idea and follow a clear path, and it just goes all over the place. And Rise of Skywalker, I saw once in the theater. I never intend to watch that movie again for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it was a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah.
So hard to believe, again, $300 million investment in each of those movies. So basically, you're looking at almost $1 billion for the trilogy.
Good grief.
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Yikes. I don't think I hate those movies quite as much as you do, but come on, man. Like, I get it, trying to reboot them. And Jurassic World, I remember kind of buying into it because that was when Chris Pratt, like, everyone was like, Chris Pratt's awesome. He's so funny in Parks and Rec. He had a lot of like goodwill.
Yeah.
Because of Star-Lord. And then I
get
it. Clout. That's what I was trying to say. I get it, but I don't know. Give me Jurassic Park all day long.
For sure.
But is this the one where they like clone a girl? Is this the second of the trilogy or the last of the trilogy? The Jurassic World trilogy. I think it's the second one, isn't it? Where they're like in the mansion.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess so. Like, I can't get them straight because they're just such forgettable turds.
Yeah,
in
like
movies.
I can watch them in the moment and be like, okay, cool, dinosaurs and Chris Pratt's funny. Those movies take up no space in my brain at all, though. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it's the second one because then Dominion is the third one.
Yeah.
And soon we're getting Rebirth.
We are. Yeah, whatever. I don't have the hate for them that some people do, but I just have an indifference towards them.
All right.
My kids love them. My kids who have pretty good movie taste, I feel like, love these Jurassic World movies, and they're really excited for this new one.
Okay. We've been mostly negative. I have a feeling we're about to get into positive, though. Avengers Age of Ultron, 2015.
Yeah.
Avengers Infinity War, 2018. Avengers Endgame, 2019.
So, to me, what is refreshing about this is that these are movies where it feels like they deserve the budget because we've got a history with these other MCU movies that it's like, okay, all right. It's like with Infinity War and Endgame, it's like, spend whatever. I know we're going to get this money back instantly. Age of Ultron, to me, is okay. It's not my favorite MCU movie. Infinity War and Endgame, I have no problem with those movies having huge, enormous, colossal budgets. I've talked about it on here before. I won't dwell on it. I love Infinity War and Endgame. I think it's an amazing cinematic accomplishment that they did those movies, that they're as good as they are. It has the all-time great cliffhanger. And since we have hated on the Russo brothers a little bit, I thought they handled like the snap and stuff so well, and the dusting and all that stuff is so cool. And I will always say that Endgame was in my opinion, the most anticipated movie of all time, and it lived up to expectations. So nothing bad to say there.
Yeah. And then we carry on with the MCU. This is where it gets a little more surprising. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in 2022 was a $300 million movie, apparently.
Holy cow. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I can't believe that movie's had a $300 million budget.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool, but I'm a horror guy, and that was MCU. Like, they brought in Sam Raimi, who did the Evil Dead movies, and let him direct, and he brought a lot of his own touch and interest to that movie. I like Doctor Strange, but holy cow, $300 million budget, that is really high.
And then this one will surprise you, I'm sure. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Ooh. Yeah. I look, I love the MCU. I've spent a lot of time on this podcast over the last 2 years defending the MCU. That is such a forgettable, just CG. They go into like Quantum Mania, and it's just honestly kind of a dull CGI fest, and yeah.
It would probably surprise you to know that, like, I'm a slight defender of Quantumania, but maybe just because its reputation is so low.
No,
I
do want to
like,
be clear.
hey,
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But when you tell me it's a $300 million movie,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
when you go, ooh.
come on, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 2023, The Marvels apparently had a $300 million budget.
I can't defend that. And that actually that movie lost like $200 million. Like, yeah, can't defend that one.
And that takes us out of the MCU. So
Yeah.
those are the MCU ones. But right into something similar, Justice League in 2017.
Oh, what a joke. That was that movie sucks. I don't care if there's a Snyder cut or whatever. Like the whole that phase of the DCU is just a disaster, and that's a bad movie.
Yeah.
Like, come on, people.
And then we have 3 lone sequels, where they're the only movies in the franchise to reach this mark so far. The first is Avatar: Way of Water, 2022, which I at least get the budget because
It's an incredible. We've talked about
it.
it.
It's an effects showy piece, like
it is, and it. I mean, you can at least see that money up on the screen. I feel the same about those movies. We don't love them, but they are visually unbelievable to look at up on the big screen.
I love my one watch in theaters.
Me too.
2023's Fast X.
I have no comment because I don't watch the Fast and Furious movies.
I don't either, but just unbelievable that a Fast and Furious movie got a $300 million budget.
Good grief.
And the last one is 2023's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah, that's a bad movie too, and that also lost a ton of money. You know what I really think we need to do one of these days is just devote an entire podcast to talking about, does any movie really warrant a $300 million budget?
Well, and here's really what I wanted to get at with the exercise we just did is going through all 16 movies, including The Electric State that we talked about plenty on this podcast, that have this budget. We arrived at Infinity War, Endgame as the only 2 that are like, love it.
Mm-hmm.
We like Force Awakens.
Yeah.
We like Age of Ultron okay. We like Multiverse of Madness okay. And Way of Water was a great theater watch. And other than that, the vast majority of these are all bad movies.
They're bad movies. If you don't have a good movie, it doesn't matter how much money you throw up on the screen.
That is a great way to put it. If your movie was going to be bad at $100 million, it's probably not going to be saved by having 200 more.
That's the thing. And I think ultimately, or I think the best example, just off the top of my head, because like you said, I didn't know we were going to do this, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. What in the world? What a mess. And it doesn't matter if you throw an extra, like, hey, let's add $75 million so we can throw in another scene of, the ships firing their cannons at each other. It doesn't matter because your movie, what you're seeing in a lot of these huge budget movies is movies that really should have never even been made.
Yeah.
And it's like, it almost feels like you're trying to overcompensate. It's almost like somebody somewhere in the studio or someone knew that this movie didn't need to be made. So they're trying to overcompensate by like, well, let's just throw the most money at it. And or the last Indiana Jones movie is a good example too, where it's like, I love Indiana Jones. I love Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom. All that stuff is great. Dude, like, why do we need a fifth Indiana Jones movie with really old Harrison Ford, and it costs so much money, and then it just tarnishes the rest of the franchise, because now the last impression or the last thing we're going to remember about Indiana Jones is he did a very so-so movie that lost a ton of money.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bummer. It's a real bummer.
Yeah, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies to me are one of the ultimate examples of the studio not getting what made the first one work.
Right.
What made the first one work is that Johnny Depp performance was so fun and so different from anything we've seen.
I've never seen anything like that.
And they go, okay, well, obviously what people are going to want is to see that over and over and over again. And then obviously people liked the weird creatures, and let's go from ghost pirates with skeletons to sea creature pirates.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, actually nobody wants to see that.
Yeah. And another thing you're seeing in a lot of these movies and the Pirates of the Caribbean are way too much budget, way too long.
Way too long.
Way too long. Those Pirates of the Caribbean movies, I'm pretty sure some of them are approaching 3 hours. No. Hour and 50 minutes, 2 hours. And even the first one, which I like, is way too long.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the first one's like 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, no, 2 hours, like fun popcorn movie. Yeah. I really think, if you're going to give out a $300 million budget to a movie from now on, it needs to be something that has a proven track. Like, we dog on franchises a lot, but it's like it needs to, like Infinity War and Endgame, they deserve the budget. We have a history. Up to that point, the MCU really had no blemish in their record as far as like box office and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, really, it was like you knew those movies are like Avengers Endgame literally made $1.3 billion in its first weekend.
Yeah.
That's a fact. You can check that worldwide. So fine, give it $400 million because it's going to earn it. And, and like, boom, we've got all these success stories leading up to it. Like, we know this is a safe bet. But you start throwing out $300 and something million for, Fast X and all this stuff. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lesson, we've talked about this before, and it's kind of what we already said. If your movie's not going to be good at $100 million, it's not going to be good at $300 million.
Yeah.
Is it a $300 million movie because you can or because it has to be?
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same thing we say with special effects. Are your special effects in there because they serve the story, or is it just all about the special effects?
Right.
So as you're saying with Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, to tell those stories, it had to be that.
Yeah. You're telling these, a story across galaxies and everything. And, you've been building up to Thanos for 10 years now. You got to spend the money to make the Thanos character look and be as cool and awesome as possible. Mm-hmm. So money well spent, in my opinion.
Yeah. Whereas, again, to continue dumping on the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, it almost feels like they made the first one and the studio said, here's a blank check. And they go, well, what all can we do with this?
Yeah.
And they just start filling their movie with stuff.
And they forget to make a cohesive movie.
Yeah.
It's just loud explosions and, the one with who is it, like Davy Jones, he's got like the tentacles on his face. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that looks cool, but you forgot to make a good, coherent movie. This is just a mess. Yeah. And just to real quickly, because I always like to praise this movie, you're talking about can versus have to. It's like, to me, the ultimate example when you're talking about special effects is like we talked about when we saw last year, Terminator 2. The special effects are serving the movie. It's not just okay, we can do this now, so let's just do. No, it's like, man, that is the ultimate example of like good story, and now we have the special effects to serve our story. Mm-hmm. And so you and I go see Terminator 2 last year or whenever that was, a movie that came out in 1991, and it's still amazing and awesome. And we spent the whole car ride home praising it because it wasn't just the special effects. It was the special effects serving the story, and the story is good.
Yeah. And it doesn't help these movies at all that occasionally you get a movie come out and win an Oscar for best special effects with $30 million budget like Godzilla -1. And you go like, okay, if people can make that movie for $30 million, where the heck
what is this money going?
Yeah.
And honestly, like stuff like Godzilla -1, like that helps me understand why people do automatically hate these movies with a $320 million budget. Godzilla -1, you saw it numerous times in the theater. I saw it in the theater. It looks incredible up on the big screen. Mm-hmm. And it's not an exaggeration to say it had like a fraction of the budget.
Yeah.
That something like the Electric State has. And Godzilla -1 is a way better movie, a way more interesting movie, and a visually better experience than the Electric State. It just is.
Amen.
And even something like that has nothing in common with these other movies, like we just talked about last week. We love Novocaine, and it's not a special effects movie, but it has an $18 million budget, and all the action, all the fighting, Jack Quaid, different effects they have to do for the no pain gimmick. It all looks great for $18 million.
Yes,
and then you talk about Pirates of the Caribbean 4 that has a $350 million budget, and it is hard not to get aggravated and turn on these movies.
Yeah. I don't, again, we're not automatically against movies just because they have big budgets.
No.
But if we were keeping a chart right now for this year, I mean, the small budgets are kicking the big budgets' butts.
They're destroying
Where we were going, movies that we love are
Companion
The Monkey, Novocaine, Black Bag.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the Black Bag is the most expensive movie out of all those.
And then over here with big budgets, we got Mickey 17, The Electric State. I'm sure Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a gigantic
I think it was
budget.
like a $250 million.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
our bad column is where all the big budgets are going, and our good column is where all the small budgets are going.
Absolutely.
And it's not just because we're snobs who are like
No,
only
I
small
love
budgets.
like I said, I know we've brought it up a million times. Infinity War and Endgame, love them.
There are big budget movies coming that we anticipate enjoying. Mission Impossible is going to have a big budget. F1 has a gigantic budget.
Huge budget.
I anticipate liking both of those movies.
Almost certain I'm going to love both of those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's not, you're right. We're not budget snobs. Yeah. I don't need every movie. I love a good art house movie, but I want to, we've talked about it a million times. I want to go to the movies and have a blast. And if that requires the movie, Top Gun Maverick's a good example.
Yeah.
I bet Top Gun Maverick had a $200 million budget, maybe more. I had a blast. You could see that budget up on the screen. All the fighter pilot stuff looks incredible. It sounds incredible. Whatever they paid Cruise for that movie, he earned it.
yes.
Because you have to have that charisma. And that movie literally made well over $1 billion. So I don't mind the budget if it's serving the movie and if it's a good movie and if I can see the budget up on the screen.
Exactly.
But like you said, that's been one of our themes so far this year, that these small budget movies are so entertaining. We're having so much fun with them. And then we're watching The Electric State and going, that was really kind of just dull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a chore to get
It was
through.
a chore to get through, where I'd go back and watch The Monkey. I'd go back and watch Companion. I'd go back and watch The Black Bag. I'd go back and watch The Wolfman right now and enjoy myself. And I don't think I'll ever turn on The Electric State again.
No.
I really, really don't. There's not one scene in that movie that I'm compelled to go back and rewatch.
No.
Yeah. This has been Jeremy and Andy go on a rant about expensive movies.
It's been coming. It's
been
building.
coming. It felt so good to get that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This felt like the right time to explore it with this movie.
It did.
And having that list available right there, just somebody putting it
I'm
together.
so glad
saying,
you did that. Thank you. And I hope we can go this summer and watch Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, which probably has a $350 million budget, and just sing its praises.
Yes.
I don't want to hate big budget movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Huge budget. Loved it. Had a blast. Watched it 3 times, I think, in the theater. Named it as my number 5 favorite movie of that year. Like, we are not here to hate on big budget movies, but
Not at all.
it has to be justified.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm out of breath from all that ranting.
Yes. And but we went a little longer this one than I anticipated because we went about 20 minutes on the budget stuff.
It was worth it,
It's
man.
fine.
That was a good
Yeah.
conversation to have.
Absolutely. But as always, we are going to keep it small budget here on the podcast.
I mean,
because
we could spend $320 million on our
we
podcast.
know that it's going to spur on the creativity, and we
right.
never want to just lean and rest on budgets.
Listen, we started this as humble people. Just because we've become famous movie podcasters doesn't mean that has changed who we are.
That's right.
I'm the same person at $320 million as I was at $320.
That's right. I was always just an insufferable movie snob.
That has not changed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for listening to us rant about budget. Sorry to all the Pirates of the Caribbean fans out there. You probably didn't expect to just get
coming here
decimated by us today.
catching strays.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we're sorry. Whenever.
Sure. Not really, though.
We
Those
gave
movies are
you the
terrible.
first one. We gave you the first one was fine.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fun.
All right. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next
See you
time.
next week.